Hello everyone, my name is Julia. I'm a certified Montessori teacher and I'm a mom of a 13-month-old named Isaac and a stepmom to an 8-year-old named Asher. Today's How to Montessori topic is all about how to incorporate lessons of grace and courtesy into your home life. If this type of content is up your alley, I would love for you to consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so that you are alerted every time I post a new video. I am trying to post twice a week. I'm trying to post on Wednesdays and Sundays. In the meantime, let's get into what is the concept of grace and courtesy and how do you teach it to your child. Teaching about grace and courtesy is actually kind of a misnomer because it's not really things that are taught in sort of formal presentations, but it's more a lifestyle to adapt and to use to become a better person and to encourage others to improve themselves as well. If you've watched my previous How to Montessori at Home video where I talk about the concept of praise, if not, I will link it up there for you. You may have heard me speak about Kohlberg's hierarchy of moral development. Essentially, it's a unit that I used to teach to my middle school students, which talks about a pyramid scheme of moral development, motivation for doing a good deed, and philosophizes as to the growth of human moral development. So the lowest tier is the lowest form, and that's when somebody does something good in order to avoid a punishment. The highest tier being the highest form, it is because you've grown for acting that way to be your natural moral code. Montessori grace and courtesy practices tie in heavily with Kohlberg's moral development because Maria Montessori herself believed very strongly in helping children to become more mindful of themselves and how they navigate through the world, and as well as the impact that they make on their communities that they will come in contact with as they grow. And just to explain a bit of context of why grace and courtesy was so paramount to Maria Montessori is she lived in Italy during Mussolini's fascist regime, and she was actually kicked out because her sort of peace education and style of teaching children was deemed too communistic for that Italian regime. So she actually fled and went and lived in India, where she met Gandhi and really focused more on her peace education. And so the concept of grace and courtesy and of becoming a more mindful and courteous person became kind of a point of activism for her. So it transcended into, for her, a much higher form of moral education for a child. So if we look at the terms grace and courtesy and analyze them for their words, what we find are two words to describe an objective way of acting with oneself, one's immediate community, and a larger global community in the end. Now, children have a very strong desire to understand the operations and rules of their community. And as they grow, they are introduced to different social structures, and they will be expected to know how to navigate through all of them. And ideally, we want to give the children the tools to be able to navigate all those different communities without burning bridges or creating enemies. But we want for them to leave whatever community they enter having made it somewhat of a better place. Now, this kind of personal, communal, and global kind of education and responsibility ended up being, and is still today, a subcategory for Maria Montessori's peace education. And if you would like more information and an excellent resource on Montessori peace education and Montessori specific materials to teach peace education, I'm going to leave a link below to a website that actually my mother created. My mother did her master's in education focusing on the rights of the child, and she then created an entire website and handmade all Montessori materials for incorporating peace education and the rights of the child into a classroom. So shout out to my mother for her incredible work and beautiful original materials, which I've used in the classroom and which many of my colleagues have also used with continuous success. Okay, so the final goal of grace and courtesy is to instill habits in a child to basically choose the little angel on their shoulder rather than the devil, to be helpful rather than harmful, to leave an environment cleaner rather than dirty, and to treat others how they themselves want to be treated. In a classroom, there are many ways in which grace and courtesy are promoted. Again, I said it's very hard to teach grace and courtesy. You can't sit down a child and say, like, you got to be thankful for this. It's a lifestyle. And so in the classroom, ways that grace and courtesy are promoted are through things like daily community jobs, having an outside and inside pairs of shoes, having community meetings, encouraging children to hold the door open for each other, and as well as specific strategies involving conflict resolution, helping a child learn to listen to what their body is telling them. I have often heard from parents how amazed they are at sort of the vibe they get from coming in and observing a Montessori classroom, that the children are so mindful of each other and are aware of where everyone else is and what other kids' needs are too. And you can bring that type of atmosphere to your home as well. And I'm gonna lay it out in 3 different tiers that you can bring it at home, because really grace and courtesy starts with one focus and we'll finish off with another focus. To start off, a child needs to learn how to be courteous and gracious with themselves and their things. Questions that you can ask yourself at this starting point include: how does my child treat their body? How does my child treat their toys? How does my child talk about themselves? What kind of adjectives and attributes does my child use when they are describing themselves? And at this point, you might then have an idea where to start. So based on what the answers to those questions you might see from your observations. Just remember that every child is born egocentric, and so it's a natural place to start being grateful for yourself and being kind towards yourself first before you can expand to any larger community. And although the qualities of empathy and a bit more global awareness won't really start to take the forefront until around age 8 or 9, that egocentricity still remains well into teenagerhood and through adulthood as well. But by teaching children some basic places to start, saying please, saying thank you, saying you're welcome, showing them that we acknowledge the effort that somebody else has gone through to make them happy or to do something kind for them, we are also then showing them that they are worthy of kindness, and that conversely, others are therefore worthy of kindness as well. And once a child learns to respect themselves and to think kindly about themselves, they will transfer that attitude into their immediate environment and to their community. And this brings us to the second tier system of implementing grace and courtesy at home. So a child's family, or whoever they live with in their home situation, is going to be their immediate community. And as I just mentioned, everyone's family is a little bit different. You could live in a blended family like how I do. You could have grandparents in the house, or an aunt or an uncle, or you know, everyone's family is different, right? So sometimes the expectations between households or from one family to the next might be different. But that's when the grace and courtesy that you role model and adapt with your child can transfer and allow them to navigate other family communities with kindness as well. You might notice in a child a sudden kind of awareness for other people besides themselves at around age 5 to 6. This is when a child's social development really explodes, and in subsequent years, the outward care a child will show for other things besides themselves will slowly start to increase. And so we start at home and with the family environment. Suddenly, you might notice your child wanting to help with a younger sibling, or offering to do a task for you, or suddenly doing something unexpectedly really kind and thoughtful for you or anybody else in the family. And so questions you can ask yourself at this stage when you're observing your child are things like, how is my child demonstrating courtesy to others? How often do I see my child thinking of another before they're thinking of themselves? How fair and equal sharing is my child? And how mindful of communal toys or furniture is my child being? Imagine you came into a room and someone had been in there before you and they left everything out. They didn't pack away any of the furniture, all of the toys or books or whatever were just left lying around. So that now you have to spend extra time putting everything back into its place just so that you then have the space to be able to take out what you need. One of the major parts of practicing grace and courtesy at home is teaching a child that everything has a place and everything has a home. And once the child habitually practices putting everything back in its place, imagining that whoever comes next will appreciate, or it will be easier for them to access and play with whatever it is a very key starting point. What you're essentially telling your child when you ask them to put something back is you're saying that what we're really thinking is about the next person who will come along who is expecting that thing or that object to be in its home place so that they can use it. When I was growing up, my dad used to gripe at us all the time. He didn't gripe very often, but he always griped about this when we would just plonk our dishes literally on the countertop above the dishwasher and not inside the dishwasher. And he'd say, it takes an extra 10 seconds to put the dishes in the dishwasher. Why can't you do it? And yeah, we were lazy. We're so lazy, we often just left the dishes on the counter. And it's true. Like, that extra 10 seconds for us added up and caused for my dad and my parents both extra minutes of their life where they then would often just put everything away. And, you know, as adults, and now having a family of my own, it makes a huge difference, those extra 10 seconds of someone being courteous and putting something away properly to another person in the family, because it does add up. And, you know, like, I don't want to waste a whole lot of my time putting away things just because other people in the family are too lazy to spend that extra 30 seconds. Because what we're really saying when somebody packs away something properly or somebody puts away something properly is that we're being conscious of other people's time and what they would rather be doing, just as you would rather be doing and not always spending extra time packing away or cleaning. And that is so meaningful. It creates a culture of wanting nice things to happen to the people in your community. And that type of thinking, when applied in a family setting, will create a culture of solidarity and a win-win style of thinking that will translate and carry over into larger communities that a child will then be exposed to as they grow older. So those larger communities, which is the third kind of tier of grace and courtesy practicing at home, is preparing your child for those larger communities. I'm talking like schools, religious centers, sports communities, work environments, etc. And those can be really overwhelming to learn how to navigate through. Ask yourself, how do I want to leave a mark in this community? What kind of culture do I want to promote? And grace and courtesy promotes a culture of peaceful cohabitation. Grace and courtesy teaches that it's the little things in life that count, no matter what size of community you're in. When I'm putting away something that I've used, I'm being mindful of the next person who wants to come use that. If I am sharing coffees that I've bought for the staff, or if I have brought cupcakes because it's my birthday, I'm being mindful that everyone has something nice. If I know that I can leave my day and I've made at least another person happy, then that makes me happy as well. And when I use manners and say please and thank you and acknowledge the effort that a stranger has done to make my life easier, that means a lot. That means that I value the efforts of somebody else. Okay, so here's a big list of places you can start with each of those kind of 3 tiers in mind. So again, the first tier being that grace and courtesy towards yourself. Second tier is grace and courtesy towards your immediate community, and the third tier is grace and courtesy towards the larger community. Places you can start: teach your child independent self-care, practical life skills. Can they dress themselves properly, brush their teeth, put their shoes on, prepare a snack? Teach your child to take care of their things. Are they dusting their toys every once in a while? Are they putting things back where they belong? Are they treating their things with care? Let them show you how they can take care of something properly before they are entitled to have something else on top of that. Is your child eating properly with utensils, taking their plate off the kitchen table, wiping up their spot if they've made a mess, making their bed in the morning, packing or unpacking their backpack depending on what the day is? Are they being thankful towards someone who has put in effort to do something kind for them? Teach your child about charitable companies, what fair trade is, how to eat nourishing foods to sustain their body and their health. Help them find a physical activity. Help them practice mindfulness of their surroundings through gardening or outside chores. Role model courtesy towards strangers, such as by holding a door open for someone, maybe buying a coffee for the person in line in front of you, bringing flowers to a neighbor who is not doing so well right now, offering your seat on a bus for an elder, cleaning bits of garbage off the beach, or donating to a charitable cause. You're walking on a beach and you're enjoying yourself immensely. It's as if no one else is there. Your shoes are off, the sun is shining, there's a breeze, and you're just taking a moment to enjoy the smell of the salty air and the feel of the sand between your toes. And eventually you look back and you see that the waves have washed the footprints of your feet away. And again, it looks like nobody has been there. Now, the next person who comes along can also enjoy their walk on the beach as if nobody had been there before. That is the work of grace and courtesy. It is to practice leaving a space or leaving a person as good or even better than you found it, because you are thinking of how to put a smile on somebody else's face and how to make the world a better place little bit by little bit. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that something resonated with you today. That is all for today. Stay safe, stay sane, and I'll catch you next time.